Let's continue, and I'll talk more about jihad and its military aspect, specifically its offensive nature, and jizya in a moment. But let's continue to see what the entire context says. Now, my brother will read verse 30.
The Jews say Ezra is the son of God. The Christians say the Messiah is the son of God. That is the utterance of their mouths, conforming with the unbelievers before them. God assail them, how they are perverted.
Did you catch that? Here, in the context of military jihad done offensively, jihad done against other groups who have not attacked Muslims with the purpose of subjugating them, Allah gives them a reason to fight Jews and Christians. And He says, this is the reason. These Jews believe Ezra is my son. Ezra is the son of Allah. Like the Christians believe Jesus is my son, the son of Allah. In saying this, they imitate the unbelievers of old. Note, to say that God has a son, whether Ezra the prophet or the Messiah Jesus, is disbelief and grounds to fight you. In fact, it went on to say, may Allah, God, assail them, fight them, kill them. Now here's the question. How does Allah fight, assail, kill the Jews and Christians for believing that God has a son? Does He Himself come down riding on a horse with a sword to kill? Or does He does so through the Muslims? In other words, verse 30 is the incentive for the Muslims to fight and subjugate us. Allah fights us through them, and does so through offensive jihad, military jihad done offensively against groups who do not believe in Allah and His messenger and believe that God has a son. It continues.
They have taken their rabbis and their monks as lords, apart from God, and the Messiah, Mary's son, and they were commanded to serve but one God. There is no God but He.
So here's a further incentive, my brother, to fight the Jews and Christians. Jews and Christians take Jesus, their rabbis and monks, as lords besides God. How much more incentive do you need, Muslims, to fight them? Catch that? This is in the Quran. This is the scripture that Muslims believe is revelation from God. So whether the Muslim likes it or not, if he's a faithful Muslim and he's able to, he must implement offensive military jihad. The reason why we don't see Muslims doing it now is because they're in stage one. They're outnumbered by the disbelievers. But in time, with enough manpower and resources, believe when I say that they will try to implement offensive jihad, because they have no other choice but to follow what the Quran says. And finally, the two last verses, 32 and 33.
Desiring to extinguish with their mouth God's light, and God refuses but to perfect His light, though the unbelievers be averse. It is He who has sent His messenger with the guidance and the religion of truth, that He may uplift it above every religion, though the unbelievers be averse.
Did you catch that? Islam cannot be one of many religions coexisting. Here it says that Allah sent His messenger Muhammad with the religion of truth to prevail over all the religions, even though the disbelievers, you and I, dislike it. You see? The Quran does not tolerate other religious systems to be co-equal with Islam. All systems must be subjugated to the religion of truth, i.e. Islam. So if you're a true Muslim, a faithful Muslim, and you have the means to carry this out, you have no choice but to subjugate Jews and Christians. Now with that said, let's read a commentary of the Quran by one of the greatest commentators who ever lived. His name is Ibn Kathir. Ibn Kathir to Muslims is like Augustine to Christians. Ibn Kathir is considered one of the greatest medieval Muslim theologians and commentators that ever lived. And here is his exposition of chapter 9 of the Quran, verse 29. This is his commentary of chapter 9, verse 29. And don't forget that when he wrote this commentary, he did so when the Muslims had the upper hand and they were the superpower, so he had nothing to hide. He had absolutely nothing to hide because he was not surrounded by disbelievers. Islam was the dominant force, so he could speak forthrightly and candidly. And this is what he says in reference to chapter 9, verse 29, specifically in why Jews and Christians pay jizya, this tribute. Brother Lee, please read it for us.
Allah said, until they pay the jizya, if they do not choose to embrace Islam, with willing submission, in defeat and subservience, and feel themselves subdued, disgraced, humiliated, and belittled.
Did you catch that? My brother read it kind of fast, but let's emphasize. Why do Jews and Christians pay the jizya? To feel disgraced, to feel humiliated, to feel debased. Do you see why the Quran forces us, Jews and Christians, to pay jizya? As a sign that Allah and His Messenger have humiliated us, have disgraced us, have debased us. That's what this great Islamic expositor says. Continue.
Therefore, Muslims are not allowed to honor the people of Dhimma,
Meaning the people who are under the protection of Islamic rule, Jews and Christians.
or elevate them above Muslims, for they are miserable, disgraced, and humiliated.
Did you see what it says? This commentary by one of the greatest commentators says that we Jews and Christians are what?
Miserable, disgraced, and humiliated.
Does this sound like a peaceful, tolerant religion? One that would allow Jews and Christians to coexist peacefully with Islam as equals, not as a subjugated, disgraced community. Well, it's obvious. If this is what Muslims are saying when they have the upper hand, what do you think they'll be doing when they have the upper hand, God forbid, in America and Europe? Their entire tone will change from one of peace and tolerance to one of subjugating these humiliated, disgraced, and despicable people, i.e. Jews and Christians. Now continue, my brother.
Muslim recorded from Abu Hurairah that the Prophet said, do not initiate the salam to Jews and Christians, and if you meet any of them in the road, force them to its narrowest alley.
So the Prophet of Islam says that when a Jew and Christians walking down the road, push them to the narrow part of the road. Christians, are you seeing the significance of that statement? You see what this means practically to you and I today if Muslims have the upper hand. If Muslims are able to subjugate the American government to the rule of Islam, that means that you and I, when we walk the street and a Muslim happens to walk by us, he has the right from Allah and His Messenger to push us off the road to make way for them. This is the true face of Islam. This is the challenge of Islam militarily. This is the threat to our system and way of life. Are we prepared to meet the challenge? We should be, because we serve the risen Lord who left the tomb empty. Christ is king, Muhammad is dead. Continue.
This is why the leader of the faithful, Umar bin al-Khattab,
The second caliph, one of Muhammad's best friends, Umar, this is why he did what he did. In perfect obedience to chapter 9, verse 29. Note what he did to the Christians living in Syria, in Jerusalem, and Lebanon. Go ahead.
may Allah be pleased with him, demanded his well-known conditions be met by the Christians. These conditions that ensured their continued humiliation, degradation, and disgrace.
So these conditions were imposed to ensure that Christians would fare well off in Muslim land? Is that what it says? So that Christians could feel as equals among Muslims? Or that these conditions were imposed as a further continuation of their degradation and humiliation? And what were these conditions that Umar imposed on Christians that he subjugated to the rule of Islam? Note some of the horrendous and horrific conditions. Note carefully as my brother reads it slowly.
These conditions that ensured their continued humiliation, degradation, and disgrace. The scholars of Hadith narrated from Abdur Rahman bin Gan al-Ash'ari that he said, I recorded for Umar bin al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, the terms of the treaty of peace he conducted with the Christians of Asham. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, this is a document to the servant of Allah, Umar, the leader of the faithful from the Christians of such and such city. When you Muslims came to us, we requested safety for ourselves.
Safety for our lives. So here are the conditions that the Muslims imposed on us Christians to live safely under their rule. What are the conditions? Go ahead.
We made a condition on ourselves that we will neither erect in our areas a monastery, church, or a sanctuary for a monk.
Did you catch that? Under Islamic rule, you cannot build new churches or monasteries or sanctuaries. Under Islamic rule, you cannot do this. Continue.
Nor restore any place of worship that needs restoration.
So you can't even renovate old churches, monasteries, and sanctuaries under these conditions imposed by one of the greatest Muslim leaders, one of Muhammad's best friends, and his father-in-law, because Muhammad was married to his daughter Hafsa. These are the conditions imposed on Christians by someone who knew Islam, not a terrorist who hijacked Islam, but someone who knew Islam better than most Muslims today, one of Muhammad's best companions. Is that what you're telling me? Continue.
Nor use any of them for the purpose of enmity against Muslims. We will not prevent any Muslim from resting in our churches, whether they come by night or day, and we will open the doors of our houses of worship for the wayfarer and the passerby. Those Muslims who come as guests will enjoy boarding and food for 3 days.
So Christians are obligated to be hospitable to their Muslim overlords, whether they like it or not.
We will not allow a spy against Muslims in our churches and homes or hide deceit against Muslims. We will not teach our children the Quran, publicize practices of shirk, invite anyone to shirk.
Did you understand what it means? Under Islamic rule, you cannot evangelize, publicize, or practice shirk, meaning we Christians who are mushrikeen, associators, cannot speak of our religion freely and publicly because our religion is a religion of shirk, the one sin that Allah will not forgive. Did you catch it? Under Islamic rule, we do not have the freedom to evangelize anyone. We must keep our religion to ourselves. This is what one of the greatest Muslim leaders imposed on Christians.
Or prevent any of our fellows from embracing Islam if they choose to do so.
Note, whereas a Christian can become a Muslim, we cannot convert a Muslim to Christianity.
We will respect Muslims, move from the places we sit in if they choose to sit in them.
So if I'm sitting down and a Muslim wants my seat, I have no choice but to get up and let him sit in my place as a sign that I'm subject to him.
We will not imitate their clothing, caps, turbans, sandals, hairstyles, speech, nicknames, and title names, or ride on saddles, hang swords on the shoulders, collect weapons of any kind, or carry these weapons.
So we're left without arms so that we cannot protect ourselves against Muslims. Christians, are you hearing this?
We will not encrypt our stamps in Arabic or sell liquor. We will have the front of our hair cut, wear our customary clothes wherever we are, wear belts around our waist, refrain from erecting crosses on the outside of our churches.
No crosses on our churches.
And demonstrating them, and our books in public in Muslim fairways and markets.
We can't even bring out our books publicly in front of Muslims. So our Bibles have to be kept hidden. Our theological works have to be kept hidden. We have to keep this hidden from Muslims.
We will not sound the bells in our churches, except discreetly, or raise our voices while reciting our holy books inside our churches.
Even in our churches, we can't recite the liturgy orally out loud?
In the presence of Muslims, nor raise our voices at our funerals, or light torches in funeral processions in the fairway of Muslims or their markets. We will not bury our dead next to Muslim dead, or buy servants who were captured by Muslims. We will be guides for Muslims and refrain from breaching their privacy in their homes.
So by the way, I think that the audience gets the point that under these conditions, Christians are living not second-class citizens, less than second class. They don't have the right to preach the gospel, to publicize the gospel. They don't have the right to build churches or renovate old ones. They do not have a right to exist as a Christian community. They must be subjugated to the most disgraceful conditions if Islam is to have its way. This is the challenge and threat of Islam when it comes to jihad, military, political, economic, and social jihad. What are we going to do as a Christian community if, God forbid, Muslims have the upper hand and implement what the Quran makes mandatory for Muslims to do, subjugate Jews and Christians to the rule of Islam? Are we ready as a church for this challenge?